What is going on, guys? Taylor Super with SharpSportsNetwork.com bringing you some of my favorite plays for this Friday 11-game NBA slate. We have a ton of games, a ton of injuries, a ton of things to be monitoring throughout the day. So make sure to follow me on Twitter at Taylor Stuber, and make sure to join the live stream. Very, very important on Twitch, twitch.tv/SharpSportsNetwork. Link is going to be in the description, streaming every day at 4 p.m. Central Time, 2 hours before lock, answering as many questions as I possibly can, breaking down the news and who we should be playing because of these injuries. And if you want to enter for a free NBA season pass with SharpSportsNetwork.com, all you have to do is subscribe, like this video, and then comment below with your favorite play of the day. So let's just get into it. So when I started looking at this slate a couple hours ago, the first thing that was glaring to me was that this Minnesota Timberwolves team is at home versus a Golden State team without essentially everybody. They're playing essentially what essentially is a G League team at this point. A bunch of rookies led by a late pick in Pascal. So not a very good team. They play somewhat fast, but so does Minnesota. So this game should be one of the fastest games on the slate, maybe outside of the Hawks and the Kings, which is funny because they only have a 225 over-under. Last year, this over-under would have been like 237, 238, but it's only 225 right now. But back to this Minnesota Timberwolves team, and then I was waiting for news on Teague and Shabazz Napier. And then right before I started recording this video, Napier's doubtful, and Jeff Teague has been ruled out with an illness. So that leaves a ton of value. I know they raised the prices on a couple of these guys, especially on Draftkings. Fanduel kind of left them alone. But on DraftKings, at least they rose the price of guys like Jarrett Culver. But I think at $5,000 in this matchup, he's still one of the best plays on the slate. We go over here and look at the last game. When Teague and Napier sat out, Jarrett Culver ended up playing 30 minutes. We got 34 minutes out of both Karl-Anthony Towns and Andrew Wiggins. Treveon Graham got 32 minutes, but that had a lot to do with Josh Okogie being in foul trouble. But the most interesting thing is, without Teague, we'll go over here to add more funds. With Teague and Napier off the court this year, Jarrett Culver has a 24.7 usage percentage and usage rating, and in this game alone he had a 24%. But if we look at ball handling, this is where I really want to look. He had a 28.6 assist percentage. So that means that him and Andrew Wiggins were the guys handling the ball, distributing it, trying to get assists the most out of everybody on that team. And then Karl-Anthony Towns, I don't really count Noah Vonleh. He didn't play all that many minutes. So I think going back to Jarrett Culver, he's averaging a point per minute. I think that you can easily project him for 30 minutes this game, and if the game stays competitive, I think that there's opportunity for him to play even more minutes. And on DraftKings, at least on 5K with guard and forward eligibility, I'm going to keep going back to him as long as Jeff Teague and Shabazz Napier are out. There's just too many. It's just too good of a spot for him to not be played there. And then on FanDuel, I mean, he's going to be probably the highest owned player on the slate, I would imagine, at 3.8K. Don't know how you get away from him. And on Fantasy Draft, he's very cheap as well. Only 9.5K. I think he should be in that 11 to 12K range at this point in this matchup with Teague and Napier out. So I like him quite a bit. And then in the same vein, I want to play Wiggins and I want to play Karl-Anthony Towns. Those guys are a bit more obvious. They just still aren't respecting Karl-Anthony Towns with a 10.3K price tag. We know that on the season, he's been averaging about 1.7 fantasy points per minute. In a small sample, with Jeff Teague and Shabazz Napier, like really small sample, only 34 minutes, which was pretty much how much he played last game. He averaged 1.49 fantasy points per minute. Massive usage rating, second on the team to Andrew Wiggins. I don't think that continues. I think he overtakes Wiggins from a usage percentage spot, and they just have nobody to stop him. He should be able to do whatever he wants, and at 10.3K, it's hard for me not to play him, and he's my favorite stud in a vacuum on the slate. and he's one of the cheaper ones. Like he's cheaper than Giannis Antetokounmpo, LeBron James, or he's about the same price as Anthony Davis. Like there's no way I'm playing Giannis Antetokounmpo at 11.5K against Utah, even though he should do well and he's done well against Utah in the past. There's no way I'm paying $1,200 more for him, at least in my cash games, over Karl Anthony Towns. But Karl Anthony Towns will be relatively high owned. And when I was talking about it earlier with Jarrett Culver, without Teagan Napier on the court, the guys distributing the ball mostly was Wiggins and Jarrett Culver. So Wiggins in these games in these minutes that Shabazz Napier and Jeff Teague aren't on the court, he actually leads the team in usage and assist percentage. He has he averages 1.34 fantasy points per minute in 36 minutes. Obviously, small sample size, but they barely rose his price over here on Fanduel up to 7.1K in this matchup. I have no problems at all on all three sides playing Culver, Towns, and Wiggins. And if you played the three players I talked about yesterday, you probably did pretty well. Dennis Schroeder did well for his price tag. Bam Adebayo crushed his price tag. Jimmy Butler crushed his price tag. I'm just going to keep going back to these Minnesota Timberwolves, especially if Teague and Shabazz Napier are going to be out. And one of the interesting things I wanted to talk about on this slate was this Miami situation with Justice Winslow entering the concussion protocol, so he's going to be missing this game. Don't think Deion Waiters plays again. We saw that Dragic did much better than Kendrick Nunn yesterday, which if you were in my private live stream yesterday, I was really interested in Goran Dragic just because his rates are so much better than Kendrick Nunn's this year. Goran Dragic has a 25.3% usage rating and 26.5 assist percentage. It's second on the team in both of those analytics, just behind guys like Jimmy Butler. And Kendrick Nunn at 23.4 usage rating and at 15.3 assist percentage. Nothing to cough at. I mean, it's great, but I think that he's slowly losing his starting job to Goran Dragic. We saw, if we look at Popcorn Machine from yesterday's game, Kendrick Nunn played about 13 and a half minutes in the first half. So if he would have played that normal rotation in the second half, he would have played about 27 minutes. We look right here. He played that 8-minute stint in the first quarter, or in the third quarter, and he would have ended up coming back in, but Goran Dragic literally just like blacked out and started shooting so well in this third quarter. He shot 3 for 4, and then in the fourth quarter he shot 4 for 6, and it was like a revenge game against Phoenix. I don't think that had anything to do with it, but he was playing so well that they could not take him off the court, and that's a scary thing about Kendrick Nunn. If Goran Dragic comes off the bench and does well, which he's going to have all the opportunity to do because he leads that team, or that second offense in terms of usage and assist percentage. If he does well, Kendrick Nunn has the opportunity to not close the game. We saw it just yesterday, and he only played 22 and a half minutes. If he would have got that full run, he probably would have had a serviceable game, but Dragic just played so well that they really couldn't take him off the court, and that was at the disadvantage of Kendrick Nunn. So if we expect the game to be competitive and to play normally, Kendrick Nunn probably would have played about 27-28 minutes this game. But I think that, I mean, it's weird because this had never happened. Even in the first half, usually he was playing 15 to 16 minutes. There was no reason that he should have came off the court. He shouldn't have been off the court this long. Earlier on in the season, even with Jimmy Butler back, this wasn't happening. So I think that he's slowly losing his position to Goran Dragic. So Goran Dragic averaging just over a fantasy point per minute. Actually, I have it up right here. This year overall, Goran Dragic's averaging 1.06 fantasy points per minute to Kendrick Nunn's 0.96 fantasy minutes. And if we take Winslow off the court, we'll run this real quick. I think that Goran Dragic averages about a fantasy point per minute. Dragic, I think, a little lower than that. But regardless, I think Dragic is a better play today because I think that he has just as much of an opportunity as Kendrick Nunn to play big minutes and to even close the games out. And I think that his opportunities are just far greater because Kendrick Nunn's playing next to Jimmy Butler for almost a majority of his minutes. So for definitely a majority of his minutes. So he's not going to get many assist opportunities. Rebounding is really not his thing. And if his shot's not falling, he's not going to play well, and he could lose minutes. On the season with Justice Winslow off the court in 128 minutes, Goran Dragic averaging 0.89 fantasy minutes or fantasy points per minute to Kendrick Nunn's 0.94. Now, I wouldn't look into that all that much just because earlier on in the season, Kendrick Nunn was shooting incredibly, and I think he kind of cooled off. And if he's not shooting that well, he's going to lose playing time, and he's not going to be nearly as good of a fantasy play. So I think Dragic, especially over here on Draftkings, is definitely worth a look at 5.2K. I know it is a bit of a tougher matchup against the Los Angeles Lakers. And it is on a back-to-back, but I think this game probably stays competitive. Again, guys, I say it over and over and over again. I'm not fading players in worries of a blowout or foul trouble. That's just something I don't really do. I think that in the long run, you're going to end up hurting yourself. Goran Dragic only 5.3K over here on FanDuel, and then on Fantasy Draft, he's 10K. So I like him on all of these sites, and so make sure to join that stream. We have a lot of injury news we're monitoring right now. So if you want the most up-to-date information and my opinions on who you should be playing because of those injuries, make sure to follow us over on Twitch, twitch.tv/Sharp Sports Network. Follow me on Twitter at Taylor Stuber. Link is going to be in the description. So yeah, best of luck today, and until next time, peace.